All right, Shalom, Shalom, Israel, Shalom to the Torah, Shaz Yasha giving recourse, all honor, glory, and praise unto YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM, Mahashiach, Wamalak Yahushua. That's all praises, honor, glorification unto the Most High YAHAWAH. In the name of His only begotten Son, Yahushua. This is your brother Yasha Ali coming back to y'all with yet another video through the Spirit and power of YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM, Mahashiach, Wamalak Yahushua. All right. So this is going into, as you can see, Exodus chapter 23 breakdown with various laws. All right, because remember, Passover is coming up, and we always got to be in the law. You know what I'm saying? The law is law. The law is very important, right? The commandments. This is how you're going to get a good understanding of the whole Bible, right? By studying the law. All right. I'm gonna get a precept real quick just to kick it off about the law. All right, this is the book of Proverbs, chapter 6. Proverbs chapter 6 and verse 23. It says, "For the commandment is a lamp, and the law is light, and reproofs of instruction are the way of life." So the commandment is a lamp, right? And the law is light. So shouldn't we study the law, statutes, and commandments, since the Most High said that the law is light, right? And the commandment is a lamp, guiding you through this dark world, right? The valley of the shadow of death, right? Let's get this real quick. Right. This is the book of Job, chapter 10, right? Job chapter 10 and verse 21. "Before I go, whence I shall not return, even to the land of darkness and the shadow of death." So this is the land of darkness and the shadow of death right here, America, right? Babylon the Great. Also, this whole world is a valley of the shadow of death, and it's full of darkness, right? So the commandments is going to help guide you through this damn dark ass world, right? So let me keep going in that Job chapter 10 and verse 22. "And land of darkness as darkness itself, and of the shadow of death, without any order, and when the light is as darkness." You see that? So Esau, yeah, he has light, but the light is darkness, right? He has, the Illuminati. And when you look at the Illuminati thing, right, or the symbol, it's basically issuing out light from the eye, right? Now, yeah, that's light, but that light is actually darkness. What is Esau's light? Esau's light is what? Damn, his democracy, right? His religion, right? His philosophy and doctrine, way of life. This is his light. The wisdom of the world, that's his light. But it's actually darkness. Why? Because it's evil. So come get this light from the right-hand side, not the left-hand side. Like a damn like a light, right? Artificial light. That's Esau's light. It's all bright, and it actually hurts you when you look at it. But it's so majestic to, like, for example, to like moths and to certain type of flying creatures. They're attracted to this light, but when they touch it, that's it for them, right? Because it's artificial and it's made to kill them. But it's so majestic, you know what I'm saying? The Most High's light on the right-hand side is more like a candle. It lights up the whole room, and it's natural, right? And it doesn't hurt you when you look at it, right? It's beautiful. So, that's some type of, that's some analogies, you know what I'm saying, about the light. All right, but let's get into the law without further ado. It's the book of Exodus, chapter 23. And in fact, I'm going to share my screen so you can see the chapter, right? So you can follow along. All right, this is the book of Exodus, chapter 23 and verse 1, right? So Lord willing, this is big enough, right? Exodus chapter 23, verse 1. Let's get it. And it reads, "Thou shalt not raise a false report. Put not thine hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness." All right, so what the Most High is saying is you're not to raise up a false report. Don't bear false witness, right? That's in Exodus chapter 20. Don't lie in the cause, right? This is kind of, this is simple. Don't raise up a false report. Don't be spreading rumors, right? The Most High hates that, right? It says, "Thou shalt not raise up a false report. Put not thine hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness." And, if the wicked is testifying and lying against something, right? And they're testifying and saying, yeah, this woman did that. This dude said that, and he did this. We're going to get an example in the New Testament, in fact. But basically, just being wicked and just lying, right? And being an unrighteous witness. The Most High hates that, and that's a sin, right? Let's go to the book of Matthew, right? Matthew chapter 26, right? And verse 57. And they that had laid hold on Yahawashi led him away to Caiaphas the high priest, where the scribes and the elders were assembled. But Peter followed him afar off onto the high priest's palace and went in and sat with the servants to see the end. Right? Verse 59 in Matthew chapter 26 and verse 59, right? It says, now the chief priests and elders and the council saw false witness against Yahawashi to put him to death. Because Yahawashi, he's really not doing anything wrong. All he was doing was preaching the truth, right? And he was going to his people, Matthew 15 and 24, right? He was only sent to his people, but he was preaching the truth, right? And he was radicalizing the law, right? And bringing his people back together, teaching love, the law, statutes, and commandments, right? And teaching what? To believe on him, right? So that you may please the Father, right? He's not doing anything wrong, but the chief priests and elders, they were trying to find false witnesses to testify against him to put him to death, right? It says sought false witness against Yahawashi to put him to death, but found none. They didn't find any, right? It says, yea, though many false witnesses came. So many false witnesses came, right? Yet found they none. At the last came two false witnesses. The Most High, he doesn't like this, right? We're according to Exodus chapter 23, we are not to raise up a false report and spread rumors, right? And said, this fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and build it in 3 days. Yeah, Yahawashi said this in the book of John, the 2nd chapter, 19th verse, but he didn't mean it as to destroy this actual temple, right? He was speaking of the temple of his body and of the nation of Israel, right? Lacan. Let's go back to Exodus chapter 23, right? Exodus chapter 23 and verse 2, right? So plain and simple, right? It says, thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil, neither shalt thou speak in a cause to decline after many to wrest judgment, right? And let me just, all right, come on. It says, thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil, right? So meaning follow a crowd to do evil. In this proper context, it's talking about, false witnesses gathering together and committing evil. Why? By being false witnesses, right? But we can also apply this to a lot of other stuff. For example, like following the ways of the heathen. You're following a multitude to do evil. For example, just because everybody else that your mom, grandma, right, your whole family, your friends, their relatives, your teachers, right? Everybody, your co-workers, everybody celebrates Christmas. They celebrate Halloween. So just because they're doing it, now you're doing it. The Most High said, to hell with that. Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil. Just because everybody else is doing evil doesn't mean that you have to, right? That's what the Most High is saying. Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil, neither shalt thou speak in a cause to decline after many to wrest judgment. Right? What is this going into? This is going into what? When you speak in a cause, right, and you testify, don't wrest judgment, right? Meaning don't convert judgment or deny justice by basically being a false witness, right? That's what it's saying. Let's say everybody, big crowd, a multitude, right? A multitude of evildoers, and they're testifying lies. They're saying stuff. They're lying, right? Flat out lying. And then here you go, because you don't want to upset them. Now you're also in it too, and you're lying as well. Most High said, no, don't do that. You got to stand up for the truth, right? Let's get this precept. It's the book of Sirach. I'm not going to pull it up on the screen, but let's get this. I'm going to just get in my book. Sirach chapter 4 and verse 28. Strive for the truth unto death, and the Lord shall fight for thee. So we are commanded to strive for the truth unto death. All right. Let's lock it. Let me just check if I'm going good. All right, so lock it. Let me just check if I'm going good. You don't want to upset them. Now you're also. All right, Con. All right, Con, Slack. All right, this is Exodus chapter 23, verse 3. It says, "Neither shalt thou countenance a poor man in his cause." Now, when I first read this, because I didn't really understand what it meant, but sometimes you have to look up the definition of certain words, right? Because countenance, when we read the scriptures, countenance means what? Like a facial expression, right? The countenance. That's what it mainly means, but it also has a different definition, right? Let's pull it up. So countenance has about two definitions, right? So countenance means first and foremost a person's face or facial expression, but it also means support or admit as acceptable or possible, tolerate, permit, allow, admit, approve of. So taking these two or three definitions in this context, it wouldn't make sense to apply the first definition. So it would make sense to apply the second definition, in which it does, right? Because let's reread it. "Neither shalt thou countenance a poor man in his cause," meaning you showing favoritism, right, to a poor man in his cause. Just because he's poor, now you're saying, well, yeah, I mean, he did not, well, he's poor, so let's say a poor man, he killed about 15 people, right, unjustly, right? He just killed him. You know what I'm saying? Flat out killed him, took his stuff, right? Killed this other guy. And these are all Israelites, right? And he killed about 15 Israelites unjustly, right? And he doesn't feel sorry. He doesn't, nothing, right? So just because this man is poor, you shouldn't be like, well, he is poor, so I'm gonna say he didn't do that. You saw him kill those 15 Israelites. But just because this man is poor, now you're like, well, I didn't see him. I just saw him kill, these two people, but I didn't see him kill that. No, you did, right? So don't show favoritism. Don't support a poor man in his cause just because he's poor, right? Let's get a precept. But I believe I might have a precept on that. All right, but Salakia, I had a precept on verse 6. But yeah, that's perverting judgment. All right. So these main, first few verses is going into perverting judgment. All right. Verse 4. Now it's going to switch up the context. "If thou meet thine enemy's ox or his ass going astray, thou shalt surely bring it back to him again." So this is a precept to what Yahawah said in the book of Matthew when he talks about loving your neighbor, or loving your enemy. Because people will read Matthew chapter 5 and they'll think that it's talking about, Yahawah is talking about loving your enemies as to loving the other nations, right? Or loving damn Edomite, so-called white man. We're not loving the damn Edomite, all right? This is the book of Matthew chapter 5 and verse 43. It says, "Ye have heard that it hath been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy." In this case, hate thine enemy will be talking about the other nations, right? Because Nehemiah chapter 5 verse 9 says, the heathen are our enemies, right? Verse 44. "But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you." So loving your enemies, when Yahawah is saying love your enemies, he's talking about those of your own nation, because all he's doing is just going back to the law. In Exodus chapter 23 verse 4, he's saying, if thou meet thine enemy's ox. This is talking about an enemy of your own nation, right? Because within your own nation, you can have problems with certain Israelites, right? Maybe y'all don't like each other. You're not going to get along buddy to buddy with every single Israelite on the block, right? You can try to do that. That's good if you do, but sometimes it happens. You may have an enemy of your own nation. So what Yahawah was teaching, he was just teaching or just radicalizing the law and bringing it back to their remembrance, right? Exodus chapter 23 verse 4. "If thou meet thine enemy's ox or his ass going astray, thou shalt surely bring it back to him again." So if you see this man, you have a problem with him, whatever. You see his ox or his ass going astray, ox meaning, a bull, I believe, or his ass, a donkey, right, going astray, just leaving the pack. Hey, we are commanded to bring it back to him again. Why? Because the laws teach love. That goes into loving your neighbor as you love yourself, right? Verse 5. If thou see the ass of him that hateth thee lying under his burden, and what is forbear to help him, thou shalt surely help with him, right? What is that going into? If you see the donkey, right, of him who hates you, right, falling under his burden, meaning what? Under his load. Let's say maybe he has too much stuff on him, right? Don't just leave him there, right? You got to help him. Let's say, the owner of that donkey, he's trying to take the load off of the donkey, whatever. If you see that, you pass by that, you got to help him, right? We're commanded to. That is love right there, right? That's love. So hopefully you can see how the laws, teach love, right? This is brotherly love right here, right? And sisterly love, of course. Verse 6, right? So now it's going to go back to judgment and not perverting going into false witnesses and stuff like that, right? So Exodus chapter 23, verse 6. Thou shalt not rest the judgment of thy poor in his cause. What does that mean? So going back to the poor, in verse 3, it said what? Verse 3 says, neither shalt thou countenance a poor man in his cause, meaning don't show favoritism to a poor man. But in verse 6, it says, thou shalt not rest the judgment of thy poor in his cause. Rest judgment of thy poor in his cause, meaning what? If he's poor, right? This man is poor and you don't like the poor. Let's say you have a disdain for the poor. You don't like the poor for whatever reason, right? Maybe because, they stink. They don't have money. They're not attracted because, they're poor, right? And don't do him wrong by perverting the judgment, right? Hopefully that makes sense, right? Because don't deny his justice, right, of the poor man. Don't treat him with disfavor, right? Let's just get a precept on that, right? Leviticus chapter 19 verse 15. Ye shall do no unrighteousness in judgment. Thou shalt not respect the person of the poor, nor honor the person of the mighty, but in righteousness shalt thou judge thy neighbor, right? So don't show any favoritism to the poor, nor any favor to the rich, right? And you are not supposed to respect the poor as well, right? God. Yeah, so, if a poor man is testifying and he, you're also testifying as well, just because that man's poor, hey, don't deny him justice, right? Verse 7. Keep thee far from a false matter, and the innocent and the righteous slay thou not, for I will not justify the wicked, right? So keep thee far from a false matter, man. Keep you far from a damn rumor, right? From a damn false matter, right? Because that's off, and that's wicked, right? And the innocent and the righteous slay thou not. Don't slay the innocent and the righteous. Hey, that's what Esau is doing on a damn daily basis. According to this man's laws, right? According to these man's laws, right? According to the American laws, hey, a lot of our people not doing anything wrong, but they still got slayed. They still got killed, right? So the Lord said, hey, that's off. And the innocent and the righteous slay thou not. Hey, they're going to be slaying the righteous, man. That's coming up in the 5th seal, right? They're going to make war against us that keep the commandments and have the testimony of YAHAWASHI, right? They're going to be slaying the righteous, right? And they've been doing that, right? But it says what? For I will not justify the wicked. The Lord is not going to justify the wicked, right? Let's go to the book of Nahum. In fact, he's going to judge the wicked, right? Salakia. Let's go to Nahum 1 and 2. God is jealous, and the Lord revengeth. Yahweh revengeth and is furious. The Lord will take vengeance on his adversaries, and he reserveth wrath for his enemies. The Lord is slow to anger and great in power, and will not at all acquit the wicked. Meaning let them go, right? All the stuff that Esau has been doing, right? All these crimes accumulating, right? Ever since he came out the caves, right? And even before that, man, right? The Lord hasn't forgotten the works of Esau during the reign of Alexander the Great in the 300 BCs, right? The Roman Empire, right? The Lord hasn't forgotten the works of Esau, right? In the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, even all the way up to now, man. The Lord sees all those works, and He hasn't forgotten a single one, right? And He's not going to let Esau go away with this, with all that he's been doing, right? It says the Lord is slow to anger and great in power, and will not at all acquit the wicked. The Lord have His way in the whirlwind and in the storm, and the clouds are the dust of His feet. BAHASHAM. All right. So He's going to slay the wicked. All right. Let's go to verse 8, right? And thou shalt take no gift, for the gift blindeth the wise and perverteth the words of the righteous. Now, don't read that and be like, well, what about Purim? Because during Purim, don't we give gifts? You know what I'm saying? We read that in Esther chapter 9, right? Don't we give portions one to another? It's not going into a damn, it's not going into, let's say you want to give a gift to your wife, you want to give a gift to your, your husband, your AHAWAH, whatever. It's not going into that. It's going into what? Mainly, it's going into bribery, right? We are not to take a bribe, right? Why? For the gift blindeth the wise and perverteth the words of the righteous. So you might be like this. Hey, somebody, right? You just witnessed a murder. And so you just witnessed a murder, right? And you running, right? And that murderer catches up to you. And he says, hey, if you keep your mouth shut, I'm gonna give you $5,000 right now. If you keep your mouth shut. What you gonna do? You want to take it, right? And be like, okay, well, I got $5,000. I didn't see anything, right? So that's going to blind you, right? That blinds you. And so let's say you have to testify in court for whatever reason for that murder, and you don't say anything. You lie and say, well, actually that night I was at home chilling. No, you were by that bar and you saw that murder, right? So now you're lying, and that's perverting your words. On another fold, let's get some precepts, though. Let's get some precepts. Let's go to the book of Sirach, chapter 23. Right? Sirach, chapter 23. Sluck it. Not 23. Sirach 20 and verse 29. Presents and gifts blind the eyes of the wise and stop up his mouth that he cannot reprove. You see that? So even a gift, a type of bribery doesn't always have to be in that situation. Hey, these damn stimulus checks. Right? Remember when Trump gave that stimulus check? He gave the first stimulus check for the COVID and stuff, right? And a lot of our people were like, well, Trump, yeah, he's the homeboy, man. He's the homeboy, right? He's not that bad. He gave us whatever money Trump gave, in the damn check, right? Hey, he's not that bad. Or, Biden, he'd been planning to give a $1,000 stimulus check to all, so-called Americans, right? And so a lot of our people, that's going to blind them and think that, oh, well, Biden, he's not that bad. He gave us $1,000. He's so nice. To hell with that, man. Right? To hell with that. You're not actually seeing that this man is wicked, right? But yeah, Khan. So that's really, what that's going into, all right? Verse 9. Also, thou shalt not oppress a stranger, for ye know the heart of a stranger, seeing you were strangers in the land of Egypt. So what does that mean? Don't oppress a stranger. This is going into a stranger of your own nation. And I'm going to prove that, right? Let's prove that through the spirit and power of Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI. Right? Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy. Let's go to Deuteronomy 23, right? And verse 19. It says, thou shalt not lend upon usury to thy brother. Usury is a type of oppression. Let's go to the word usury in the Hebrew, right? So usury, nashak, right? To bite, to give interest. Watch this. It says to oppress with interest on the loan. You see that? So you can't oppress your brother. A form of oppression, one form of oppression is going into usury, right? Usury is a very unreasonably high interest rate, right? Let's look at the definition. It says the illegal action or practice of lending money at an unreasonable high rates of interest. You see that? So we are not allowed to lend upon usury to our fellow brothers, right? That's what Deuteronomy is teaching. Let's keep reading. Deuteronomy chapter 23 and verse 19. It says, thou shalt not lend upon usury to thy brother, usury of money, usury of victuals, usury of anything that is lent upon usury. Okay, so thy brother, right? Brother is going into a fellow Israelite, right? Is going into a fellow Israelite, right? Okay, let's keep going. But here's the point. Verse 20. Unto a stranger thou mayest lend upon usury. The stranger in this context is going into the one of another nation. So you can oppress the other nations, but you cannot oppress your own brother or your own sister. You cannot oppress a fellow Israelite, but you can oppress the heathen, the Edomites, Moabites, Ammonites, Ishmaelites, etc. Unto a stranger thou mayest lend upon usury, but unto thy brother. See that? See the change there? But unto thy brother thou shalt lend upon usury, that the Lord thy God may bless thee in all that thou settest thy hand to in the land whither thou goest to possess. All right. So let's go back. Exodus chapter 23 and verse 9. Right? Oh, Slovakia. So now it's going to go into the Sabbath, right? Verse 10. In 6 years thou shalt sow thy land and gather in the fruits thereof. So this is going into a land Sabbath. So we had 6 years, right, to sow the land, right, to gather the fruits, right? Verse 11. But the 7th year thou shalt let it rest and lie still. So this is going into a land Sabbath. You know, on the 7th year, we had to let our land rest, right? That the poor of thy people may eat. And what they leave, the beasts of the field shall eat. In like manner, thou shalt deal with thy vineyard and with thy olive yard. So on the 7th year, on the land Sabbath, we let our fields just remain at rest. We don't work on it. And so the poor of our people will come there and eat of our field, right? And whatever they leave, then the beasts of the field will come and eat that, right? So that's showing mercy to the poor, right? Verse 12. 6 days shalt thou do thy work, and on the 7th day thou shalt rest, that thine oxen and thine ass may rest, and the son of thy handmaid and the stranger may be refreshed. So the Sabbath, remember, is made for man, right? The Sabbath is made for man, for you to be refreshed. That's our rest day, you know. But that doesn't mean, you know, you just sleep all day. That doesn't mean that you just, you know, playing video games all day, right? It means, you know, you rest, you take your rest, of course, and you also serve the Most High on that day, all right? But Khan, and I want to get a precept on verse 11, going into the land Sabbath, all right? Going into the land Sabbath. All right, it's the book of Leviticus chapter 25 and verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses in Mount Sinai, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, when ye come into the land which I give you, then shall the land keep a Sabbath unto the Lord. In 6 years shalt thou sow thy field, in 6 years thou shalt prune thy vineyard, and gather in the fruit thereof. So you have 6 years, you know, sow your field, work on your field, right? But in the 7th year shall a Sabbath of rest unto the land. But in the 7th year shall be a Sabbath of rest unto the land, a Sabbath for the Lord. Thou shalt neither sow thy field nor prune thy vineyard. That which groweth of it own, according to thy harvest, thou shalt not reap, neither gather the grapes of thy vine undressed, for it is a year of rest unto the Sabbath. That's like unto the land, right? So come, that's going into the land Sabbath. Also, let's go to the book of Leviticus, chapter 26, right? And verse 42. Then will I remember my covenant with Jacob and also my covenant with Isaac, and also my covenant with Abraham will I remember, and I'll remember the land. The land also shall be left of them, and shall enjoy her Sabbaths. You see that? So the land right now of Israel is not enjoying her Sabbaths, right? The land of America right now is not enjoying her Sabbaths, right? And the whole earth is not enjoying her Sabbaths. And the earth is supposed to have a Sabbath as well, you know? Instead of 6 days, it's 6 years, right? So when we're back in the land, it's going into this is eschatology, right? Or this is the eschaton, meaning when we in the end times, right? And so when we go back to the land, we're going to be keeping these laws, right? While she lieth desolate without them, and they shall accept the punishment of their iniquity, because they despise my judgments, and because their soul abhorred my statutes. So yeah, right. But yeah, and verse 12 is just going into the Sabbath, right? Just going into the the regular Sabbath, right? You can read about that in Exodus chapter 20, verse 8. That's the fourth commandment. All right, verse 13. And in all things that I have said unto you, be circumspect, and make no mention of the name of other gods, neither let it be heard out of thy mouth. So that's going into basically you swearing by these other gods, and that's idolatry. All right. Remember, the Most High said in Exodus chapter 20, thou shalt have no other gods before me. All right. Verse 14. 3 times thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the year. Right. So now let's going into the 3 feasts. Right. Now, these are the 3 big feasts, right, of the year. Let's go through it. Verse 15. Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread. So the feast of unleavened bread. Remember, the first day of the feast of unleavened bread is the Passover, which is actually coming up March 26th at sundown, right? Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread. You can read about the feast of unleavened bread. In fact, all these 3 feasts in the book of Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. I'm not going to read the whole thing right now, but you can, if you want to study to show that self-approved, you can go ahead and read that chapter, all right? Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread. Thou shalt eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded thee in the time appointed of the month of Abib. For in it thou camest out from Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty. So we're supposed to go to Jerusalem, right? These 3 feasts, right? Let's go to the book, or actually, let me just keep reading. But verse 15 is going into the Passover and the feast of unleavened bread, right? Let's get a precept on the Passover. Exodus chapter 12, right? Exodus chapter 12, right? And verse 14. And this day, meaning going into the Passover, and this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and you should keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations, meaning forever. All right, so don't be saying that the Passover, we don't have to keep it. The Lord said throughout your generations, right? You shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever, right? 7 days shall ye eat unleavened bread. Even the first day ye shall put away leaven out of your houses, right? For whosoever eateth unleavened bread from the first day unto the 7th day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. You see that? So yeah, that's going into the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread. All right. Remember, YAHAWASHI, he also kept the Feast of Unleavened Bread. All right. Let's go to the book of Leviticus, chapter 22, and verse 1. Now the Feast of Unleavened Bread drew nigh, which is called Passover. See that? And as you read that chapter, that's going into the so-called Final Supper. All right, the Last Supper. But yeah, come on, let's go to the next feast. Verse 16. In the feast of harvest, the first fruits of thy labors, which thou hast sown in the field, and the feast of ingathering. So what is the feast of harvest? The feast of harvest is going into the feast of first fruits, which is also called Pentecost, right? Because it's exactly 50 days after the Passover, right? It says, which is the end of the year, when thou sluck it. So the Feast of First Fruits, right? That's also another commandment called Pentecost, right? And the Feast of Ingathering. Feast of Ingathering is going into the Feast of Tabernacles, right? Which is the end of the which is in the end of the year when thou hast gathered in thy labors out of the field, right? So let's get precept on that. Deuteronomy chapter 16, right? In verse 16. 3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose, in the feast of unleavened bread, in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of tabernacles, and they shall not appear before the Lord empty. Every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of the Lord thy God, when he hath given, which he hath given thee. You see that? So we were supposed to appear before the Most High in Jerusalem 3 times a year. But the thing is, right, we're in captivity, and we're not able to do the things that we want to. We can't go to Jerusalem 3 times a year, right? But yeah, so Feast of Ingathering is also known as the Feast of Tabernacles. And the Feast of Harvest is known as the Feast of First Fruits, right? Let me look at my notes. All right, we have to bring the offering as well. Let's go to the let's go to the book of Leviticus chapter 23 about the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Leviticus chapter 23. Let's lock it. Right. Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 34. It says, "Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, the 15th day of this 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days unto the Lord." So, right, this is the Feast of Tabernacles right here. "On the first day shall be in holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein." So remember, Day of Pentecost is just 1 day. Feast of Unleavened Bread is 7 days, right? On the first day is the Sabbath. First day is Passover. Last day will also be a Sabbath. And for the Feast of Tabernacles, the first day is a Sabbath, and the last day is a Sabbath as well. All right. But yeah, you can read that on your own. Even when you read Zechariah chapter 14 and verse 16, it goes into the nations having to keep, and also us having to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. So yes, it's still here, right? If we're going to be keeping it in the kingdom, why will we not be keeping it right now? Verse 17, right? 3 times in the year, all thy males shall appear before the Lord thy God. Verse 18, "Thou shalt not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread, neither shall the fat of my sacrifice remain until the morning." Right? Because when you go into the ordinances of Passover, right? And going into the Passover, you're not supposed to eat the Passover with leavened bread. That's why it's called the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Unleavened bread means what? Well, leavened bread means bread with yeast in it, right? And stuff that makes it rise. So we are not supposed to eat the Passover with leavened bread, right? Let's get a precept. Exodus chapter 20 or Exodus chapter 12, right? Exodus chapter 12, right? Exodus chapter 12 and verse 8. "And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire." So you have to roast the Passover lamb, "and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it." You see that? So you have to eat it with the bitter herbs and the unleavened bread, right? "And the fat of my sacrifice," meaning so any leftovers that you have for the Passover or from the Passover dinner, the meal, any leftovers for the meat, you can't just keep it, right? You couldn't just keep it. You have to throw it in the fire and burn it. All right, so that's what that's going to. Verse 19, "The first of the first fruits of thy land shalt thou bring into the house of the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not see the kid in his mother's milk." So the first of the first fruits of thy land, what is that going into? That's going into what? Just the first fruits of your land. Because when you read Exodus chapter 20, I believe it was Exodus 22, right? It's just going into the first fruits, right? And we had to sacrifice that, when you had to bring it to the Lord, right? "Thou shalt not see a kid in his mother's milk," right? Don't boil a young goat in its own mother's milk. That's off, right? Which is not going into, I believe somebody said, or Amalek thinks that this is going into basically you not being able to eat cheeseburgers. Not what it's going into. It's just going into don't boil a young goat, right? That's a kid, a young goat in his mother's milk. That's off, right? So now it's about to switch. So Exodus chapter 23, verse 20. All right. Says, behold, I send an angel before thee to keep thee in the way and to bring thee into the place which I have prepared. Right? Now this angel is making reference to Yahawashi, right? Verse 21. Beware of him and obey his voice, provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions. For my name is in him. You see that? His name is in him. Now, this could be making reference to Yahweh and Yahawashi, right? Because remember, Yahweh, right? And Yahawashi, when you look at those two words or names, rather, right? Let's pull it up. So as you can see right here, right? Let me stop sharing my screen. As you can see right here, right? This is Yahweh right here. That's Yahweh, and that's Yahawashi. As you can see, the first three letters of Yahweh's name is in Yahawashi's name. You have Yahawah, right? Yahawah. In Yahawashi's. Yahawashai, right? The Sha and the I are the two last letters of Yahawashi's name, but the first three are the exact same for Yahweh. So that's what it could be making reference to. All right, that's what it may very well be making reference to, right? And that's an indicator that this angel is Yahawashi. All right, remember Yahawashi, he can take many forms. He can come in the form of an angel if he wants. All right. When he came as Yahawashi, how we know him as the Messiah, the Mahashiach, he came as a mortal man. All right. So let's go. I'm going to share my screen again. So Exodus chapter 23 and verse 22, right? But if thou shalt indeed obey his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy unto thine enemies and an adversary unto thine adversaries. You see that? Remember, Yahawashi said in the book of Zechariah, he that touches you touches the apple of mine eye. So when you touch the Israelites, that's like you fighting against the Most High. What is the Most High going to do? Right? He's going to destroy you. Right? Because if you hate the children of Israel, you hate the Most High. Right? Especially the Most High's prophets. Right? And the Most High's chosen. Of his chosen. Right? It's the book of Deuteronomy chapter 7 and verse Deuteronomy 7 and verse 10. And repayeth them that hate him to their face to destroy them. He will not be slack to him that hateth him. He will repay him to his face. You see that? So if you hate the Most High, you hate the children of Israel, he's going to destroy you. Verse 23. For mine angel shall go before thee and bring thee in unto the Amorites, the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Canaanites, the Hivites and the Jebusites, and I'll cut them off. So in this context is going into what? The angel is going to go before, or go with the children of Israel to bring them into the land of what? The Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, right? And this is just talking about the land of Canaan. The promised land, aka the land of Israel, right? That's just what it's going into, right? And he's going to cut off these certain nations. Remember, we couldn't deal with these nations, right? Read Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 24. Thou shalt not bow down to their gods. So we are not to bow down to their gods, nor serve them, right? Nor worship them, right? That's what that's going into. Don't worship them, right? All right. It says what? Thou shalt not bow down to their gods nor serve them, nor do after their works, but thou shalt utterly overthrow them and quite break down their images. All right. So, lucky. Let me see if I have this precept. Going into this Exodus chapter 14. Right. And the Lord said He's going to fight for us. Right. Let's go to the book of Exodus chapter 14 and verse 14. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. And the Lord, He fights for us by what? He fights for us by using angels, all right, as well. But let's keep going. Verse 26, 25. And so we're supposed to be breaking down these images, man. We're supposed to be going to these damn various idols and various pictures of Mary and statues and breaking this stuff down, destroying it, because that's an abomination to the Lord. All right. And also, I wanted to get this precept as well. On the Most High, He's going to fight for you if you obey Him. Right? If we obey Him, everything is going to be good. Right? That's what He promised. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6. For without faith, it is impossible to please Him. For he that cometh to the Most High must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of them that diligently seek Him. So if you diligently seek the Most High, He's going to reward you for that. Right? Let's go to the book of Sirach. Sirach chapter 51 and verse 30. It says, work your work betimes, and in His time He will give you your reward. Right? So work your work betimes. All right? And in due time, He's going to give you that reward. Right? Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 8, knowing that whatsoever good thing any man doeth, the same shall he receive of the Lord, whether he be bond or free. So whether you're a slave, whether you're a free man, so-called, right? Whatever good thing that you do, you're going to receive that from the Lord. All right. All right, but let's keep going. Verse 26. There shall nothing cast their young, nor be barren in thy land. The number of thy days I will fulfill. So this is going into a few blessings that the Most High will bestow upon you and upon the nation of Israel if we keep His commandments. Right? Remember, the Most High said, behold, I set you before this day a blessing and a curse. A blessing if you obey my commandments, and a curse if you disobey my commandments. Right? And we as a nation has chose what? To disobey the commandments. And so that's why we're effed up. That's why we're just so low. That's why we're cursed, because we want to do what we want to do. And so that causes us to be cursed and be punished by the Most High. All right. So we have to keep the commandments to reverse the curse. Verse 27. I will send my fear before thee, and will destroy all the people to whom thou shalt come. And I will make all thine enemies turn their backs unto thee. You see that? The Lord, He has power to do that. All right. Because we are a mighty nation because of the Lord. All right. Because of the Lord. And when Judas Maccabeus, before he went to battle, guess what he was doing? And his men, they were praying before the Most High. Right. Let's just get an account. All right. It's the book of 2nd Maccabees, right? Chapter 15, right? Exodus chapter 15, right? Exodus chapter 15, right? And verse, I'm gonna start at verse, right? Let me see. Salakia, all right. Salakia, second Maccabees. Right. Come on. I'm going to read this. 2nd Maccabees chapter 15, right? In verse 7. It says, but Maccabeus had ever sure confidence that the Lord would help him. Wherefore he exhorted his people not to fear the coming of the heathen against them, but to remember the help which in former times they had received from the heaven, and now to expect the victory and aid which should come unto them from the Almighty. And so comforting them out of the law and the prophets, and withal putting them in mind of the battles that they won before, he made them more cheerful. You see that? So Maccabeus, before the battle, he wasn't saying, oh my God, right, what are we going to do, right? Hey, we might lose. He said, hey, to expect a victory, and he was exhorting his people out of the law and the prophets, right? And he expected the victory, and he was praying before the Most High. But when you read the account, hey, guess what Nicanor was doing? He was coming with songs and timbrels and dancing, celebrating too early, and he's too cocky, he's too proud, right? Oh, we can destroy these Israelites in a matter of minutes, right? They're nothing. Hey, guess what? We prayed unto the Most High, and we expected the victory, and the Most High granted it to us, all right? So the Most High, he can fight for you, all right? Verse 28, and I will send hornets before thee, which shall drive out the Hivite, the Canaanite, and the Hittite from before thee, right? Now, some people take this literal, some people take it figuratively, all right? Let's just get the account in Wisdom of Solomon. It's the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 12, and verse 8. It says, nevertheless, even those that sparest as men, and didst send wasps, forerunners of thine host, to destroy them little and little. You see that? And the Most High, he can use certain creatures like dogs, bears, lions, right? A jaguar, even, right? Spiders. He can use these certain creatures to destroy you and to punish you, to hurt you. The Most High does it all the time, right? And so in this case, he used hornets, right? In this account, it says wasps. Basically the same thing, right? To drive out these damn heathen, the Hivite, the Canaanite, and the Hittite, right? Let's keep going. All right. Actually, let me get a precept on that. Quick precept. Sirach chapter 39 and verse 28. And it reads, there be spirits that are created for vengeance. So you have certain spirits in the heavens that's mainly created for vengeance, right? Even spirits down on earth, right? Which in their fury lay on short strokes. In the time of destruction, they pour out their force and appease the wrath of him that made him. So maybe the Most High is angry, and he'll appease the Most High's anger by what? Let's say the Most High orders a legion, meaning a group of wasps, to destroy this man that he hates, that he's angered at. And he's going to order these bees to sting you to death. Or he's going to order these wasps to sting you to death. Or he's going to order this pebble, right, that you're walking, you're just walking down the street. And he orders it, he stirs up the spirit of this pebble to kill you, to bite you in the neck. You know what I'm saying? He can do that. Verse 29. Fire and hell and famine and death, all these were created for vengeance. So all that was created for vengeance. Teeth of wild beasts and scorpions, serpents, and the sword, punishing the wicked to destruction. You see that? So all these things were created for vengeance. Verse 29. I will not drive them out from before thee in 1 year, lest the land become desolate and the beasts of the field multiply against thee. So the Lord, he was driving out the heathen out of our land little by little. When you read the account in Wisdom of Solomon, little by little, right? Verse 30, little by little and little, I will drive them out from before thee until thou be increased and inherit the land. So the Most High was waiting for us to be increased, and he was waiting until the land be cleared out, right? But he didn't want the land to be desolate, and he didn't want the beasts of the field to multiply against us and be too much for us, right? Verse 31. And I'll set thy bounds from the Red Sea, even unto the sea of the Philistines, and from the desert unto the river. The river is making reference to the Euphrates River. And the sea of the Philistines is going into a part of the Mediterranean Sea, right? And from the desert unto the river, and I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and thou shalt drive them out before thee. Deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hand, meaning you being able to have the authority over them, and you basically, yeah, having that power over them and destroying them, right? So that's what that's going into. Verse 32, thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor with their gods, right? So we're not to make a covenant with the certain nations listed in Deuteronomy chapter 7, as well as verse 23 right here. The Amorites, Hivites, Perizzites, Canaanites, the Hivites, or the Hittites and the Jebusites. So we're not supposed to make a covenant with them. That's reiterated in Deuteronomy chapter 7. Nor with their gods. They shall not dwell in thy land, lest they make thee sin against me. Right? So they were driven out. Why? Because they were bound to make the children of Israel go off. Right? For if thou serve their gods, it will surely be a snare unto thee. A snare is a trap, right? So it's going to be a trap unto you. And that's not a nice trap, right? When the Lord says it's going to be a snare unto you, meaning you're going to be destroyed, it's not going to look too good for you, all right? So these Canaanites, we're still not allowed to marry these Canaanites. We're still not allowed to make a covenant with these Canaanites, all right? Gone. So yeah, Lord willing, this was edifying. All right. Lord willing, this was edifying. This was Exodus chapter 23 breakdown. Kwam Yasha Allah. Shalom. This is Brother Yasha Allah.